Hey guys, a Dace-tacular Mind is back. Now, I know we went on hiatus for a couple months, but that's because this is a podcast that really requires myself to be in the mood to record a podcast. To try to force something out weekly just doesn't work, especially if there's no topic list. But I can reassure you that the month of December is going to be packed with a Dace-tacular Mind based on the various plethora of topics that I feel comfortable talking about now at this point in my life, as well as recent events that have happened. And we got a good run coming up for the month of December that'll take us into the new year. We'll kick off this week talking about Basement Protocol Productions' 1-year anniversary that just passed on December 1st, the whole rebranding event we did in 2020. And then we'll talk about The Anomaly, which, if you listen to some of the earlier episodes of A Dace-tacular Mind, it'll make sense. It's kind of a sequel to that episode when I talked about children. We'll talk about The X. Yes, that one. Because now I feel like I'm at a point in my life where I can talk about it from a objective standpoint and not bitter, not emotional. And we'll have an episode around that. We'll also talk about my job. I told you that I could do a podcast solely on the 18 plus years of experience I've had at this place, which has been 4 incarnations of different companies, but we'll get into that and probably consider it a part 1 later on in the month. And then we'll wrap up with a 2021 review and where we think 2022 will take us. But today I wanted to talk about the one, the only, 1-year anniversary of BPP. Now, back in 2020, as you've heard on this podcast, if you heard on any other podcast we've done, show we've done, live stream we've done, 2020 was a weird year of flux. It was the first year where the Dace Man Show didn't air weekly. And before BPP became Basement Protocol Productions and the rebrand, everything flew under the Dace Man Show franchise umbrella, or flag, since I said flew. And 2020 wasn't a good year for the Dace Man Show brand because, again, we weren't on the air for about 6 months. I think we did the first couple weeks in January. The idea was to relaunch after the Game-a-thon of that year, but then the pandemic started, which wasn't allowing us to meet in person. But we did bring it back at the 8-year anniversary. Yeah, because we just did the 9th. And we realized that we didn't have the same group of people / motivation. We had just brought Jarrett on, who started streaming on our channel for a bit. We had Tim, who really carried, Tim Clark. He really carried the load for the Twitch channel for the beginning of January and February, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think Dace-tacular Game-a-thon 8 would have been successful. We've all talked about, I've talked about here on this podcast, how 2020 was not a good year for me, especially at the beginning. I know it was a good year for anybody, but that first few months, I just didn't feel like doing anything. And I owe Tim Clark a huge thanks, as well as Chris Bompadre, who I know helped Tim a lot and helped us under the Dace Man Show franchise projects we used to do in the past, for keeping it going. I don't think the work that they did, I don't think that if they didn't do the work that they did in January and February for which was then twitch.tv / Dace Man and Friends, we wouldn't have a BPP at all. It wouldn't make me think of the rebranding process. It wouldn't make me realize that, certain things. So I want to take this opening segment just to kind of thank them for everything they did. Much success to Tim. He is over on his own twitch.tv, Tim of the North 88, I believe is the full moniker, Northern Gaming. We plug him a lot. We raid him a lot when he's on. And he opened up a plethora of networking opportunities for us. He really kept the stream going when yours truly wasn't. And at the time, it was called The Dace Man Show and Dace Man and Friends, and the Dace Man was nowhere to be found. So again, huge thanks to Tim Clark and Chris Bompadre for what they did at the beginning of 2020. which kind of stinks because as we get into this story, you'll find that they're not part of BPP. But hey, I am grateful for all they did in that first quarter of 2020 when I couldn't get my own head out of my ass and I couldn't get my own motivation going. And without them, I don't think, again, we would have had the 8th game-a-thon. I think that would have been the last game-a-thon, and I don't think we would have ever brought the Dace Man Show back. So, again, for I think the 4th or 5th time, I really want to thank Tim Clark and Chris Bompadre for what they did in 2020, which ultimately led to what happened December 1st, 2020. So the the last quarter of the year, after getting myself settled, rebranding the show in a way that we were still the Dace Man Show. We were still Facebook.com/the Dace Man Show. We were still Basement Protocol, or we were still Dace Man and Friends over on Twitch, and we still had the DaceManShow.com. And June, when we brought the Dace Man Show back, we brought it back with a different structure. It was just myself and Gibby for a good period of time, where we just flipped the switch. We would just go and rock and roll. And even though I brought it back and we were doing it, it still wasn't exactly what I wanted it to be, and it still felt empty. There was kind of a shell to it, which kind of stunk. We had launched another project in that interim where we brought Paden Nerd and Jersey Bullies into the mix, and upon the Dace Man Show not really being the cornerstone, or after 8 years going anywhere at that point, it just didn't feel right that, like, oh, the Dace Man Show presents Jersey Bullies or Paden Nerd. It just, I had nothing to do with Jersey Bullies for the most part. I was in their first episode, but really that was an Eric Berezzo and Tyler Freed project, and it just didn't sit well that everything was under the Dace Man Show. And it's not something that sat well with me for the most part over the 8 years that we've done things. The Dace Man Show itself was meant to just be a show. I had always envisioned that it flew under a production company of a different name, and Basement Protocol really started 8 years ago. I would say it started about a year or two after the Dace Man Show, or maybe a little before, and it was more of a there's a Google Drive out there of a lot of scripts and ideas and outlines and stuff that we wrote under the Basement Protocol moniker. We even filmed some stuff when we tried to do a series called Upload Failed, where the concept was, here are these 20-something-year-olds, who are now 30-something-year-olds, that were actively trying to get YouTube famous and then would fail at the various YouTube challenges, which is kind of out of date, but still can be used in like certain, just change YouTube to like TikTok, and I think it still works. But everything we did there flew under its own Basement Protocol identity, because I never really wanted everything to be associated with the Dace Man Show. The whole point of the Dace Man Show was to be a show. Ideally, we're not there yet with the show. We're still doing some retooling. We're still trying to find our footing. It's weird that after 9 years we haven't. I'm hoping we'll get there one day to the vision, and most of it's just commitment / production limitations. But the Basement Protocol company, per se, was an idea that was floating out there very loosely and very seldom used. So through the summer of 2020, as we were doing more projects, we were doing more podcasts, we're realizing that, so-and-so's off doing their own thing over there, and a group of people were going to do the thing over there. And we did this with the Dace Man Show. That was the concept. We had segments like Frank's for Everything. That was Frank Ward and Frank Cline. We were really trying to push the 4 Real Movie Club with Tricia Bell running that. We had a segment with just Gibby. Myself and Chris Bompadre were doing Musically Challenged. There was an idea, but we flew everything under the Dace Man Show, and that's really kind of arrogant if you think about it, because I wasn't in everything. I didn't have any input into some of the segments whatsoever, and yet they still had to have my name on it, it always bothered me. But I guess out of laziness, I just never rebranded. So over the summer, as more people came on, and I realized that a Twitch channel that said twitch.tv/Dace Man Friends was hosting someone like Jarrett Edelman, who's doing Jarrett Games. Gibby was streaming more. Tim had taken the bulk of the workload at the beginning of the year. There was just me for 1 hour on a Tuesday, and that was it. So how is this Dace Man and Friends when the friends were really pulling the workload? And in having conversations with Jarrett and Tyler and Frank, and Gibby listened. I don't think Gibby truly cared. He usually just goes for the ride. And Trish and stuff like that. It's like, well, we need to rebrand under something. We need to be a production company that houses the Dace Man Show and Dace-tacular Gaming for a Cause, but also acknowledge that the Jersey Bullies are their own entity. Jarrett Gaming is its own entity and its own streaming night. Gibby is its own character and entity. Four Wheel Movie Club can have its own identity, and it would give these projects more of an identity rather than having the Dace Man logo just being thrown on it, and in some instances, not having the Dace Man involved whatsoever. I will admit, I do think I do appear in a lot more at the time, which made sense for the Dace Man Show. So, like, I was hosting Potter Nerd, I was on the premiere episode of Jersey Bullies, I did do the Dace Man Show. Didn't fucking stream. I can't even take credit for that. I just got into streaming more this past year with Basement Protocol than I ever did when it was called Dace Man and Friends. And it was just, for people to want to be a part of something, to feel included, maybe don't work for something called Dace when you're not Dace. And all people keep hearing is Dace, 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 Dace. So it always bothered me, but 2020, after, coming to a head with a lot of different emotions and my personality as a whole, it made more sense to rebrand. So in September of 2020, a lot of us started talking like, hey, we are now rolling with multiple projects. We have a stream schedule. We have Gibby streaming on a night. We have Dace streaming on a night. We have Jarrett streaming on a night. We have the Dace Man Show. We have afternoon streams by Aaron Bentel and Eric Berezzo. We have podcasts that feature Eric and Tyler. We have podcasts that feature Dace and various different hosts of what would be the BPP team. We need to be a production company. We need to house this under an umbrella that isn't Dace. Because what if somebody just despises the Dace Man Show? And I'm sure there are. Who wouldn't? Especially if you don't like me as a person, and that's fine. It's your personal preference. I probably don't like you as a person, but, we're not going to get into that. This is a podcast talking about BPP, but let's just say for some reason the Dace Man Show name has some kind of, tarnish on it, more or less. You'll never get something like the Jersey Bullies off the ground, or Potter Nerd off the ground, or anything that has the word Dace in it, because maybe I just avoid that because Dace. I could be, in my head, I could be thinking, making a bigger deal of something that doesn't exist, but it could be a possibility. I'm sure there's people out there that really don't care for me, and that's fine. You do you. I'm not going to interfere with your life, don't interfere with my life, but maybe they want to watch a project called the Jersey Bullies, or Potter Nerd, and go, oh shit, I didn't realize Dace was in this, but this wasn't that bad. Or, hey, I prefer Frank as a talent, or Jarrett as a talent, or, I don't think these words would ever be uttered, but Gibby as a talent. And you just don't want to have a constant reminder of Dace, especially when Dace isn't involved. So the rebranding of Basement Protocol Productions made total sense, and I feel like if I was working for something, and I have done work for other entities on the internet before, Fanboys Anonymous, we tried the attempt at Uncensored, Mega Powers Radio. It felt more inclusive not being called Tony Mango's big fucking project, Mike Paden's fucking podcast system, or comedy group starring so-and-so. It felt more inclusive to be part of Fanboys Anonymous or Mega Powers Radio. If you did something for me for a while, and this is how stupid I am, and I wish I fixed this sooner, you were working, I work at the Dace Man Show. the Dace Man is 3 of the 4 fucking words in that. So I can get where that's a little annoying. I'd get annoyed at it. Again, I don't know if I would be able to work for things that were called Gibby's Big Old Fucking Farm. I guess I'm not being a farmer. And I don't know why all these titles had the word fucking them. It's just my sailor mouth spewing out garbage. So the rebrand to Basement Protocol was more or less, we had this thing, we had a logo for it. We do a lot of filming in what's called we call it jokingly the Basement because of the whole Dace Man Show shit. But we do a lot of filming in basement because we built some kind of studios back there and we have a lot of equipment down there. So we built an entity of Basement Protocol Production. We're going to revive it, give it a new logo, which is fantastic by Jarrett, where he has the staircase going up and then the BPP, which I fucking love that logo better than the one I had. Me playing with fonts and doing a art, like an easel type splatter around. And we targeted December 1st for the relaunch. And the cool thing about it is that kicked everybody into gear. We had everybody, we were having monthly meetings. We brought people back into the fold that were kind of out of the fold and didn't really want to do things because it was called the Dace Man Show and stuff like that. And that's fine. Again, I don't think I would do it if it was Gibby's Big Old Fucking Show. And people got motivated. And it was a hell of a motivation. I was so impressed by the levels of, like, we were giving people roles. We were signing, like, director of podcasting, the director of streaming, the director of this, that, the third. All kinds of titles. And getting people involved and giving them a sense of purpose within this organization. We, as a collective unit, we're going to build off the ground. Because, unfortunately, when it comes to this stuff, it's not a moneymaker. Like, it's a low success rate to be as successful as you could to make everybody live comfortably. You got to think BPP probably has a total of 10 people, and for everybody to live comfortably, they probably need to make about $100K a year. To be phenomenal, you'd have to make $100 million a year, and now you got to spread that across 10 people to equally drop out, plus cost of production, stuff like that. And in our first year, we made a couple $100, which we circulated right back into BPP costs. So you're looking at this from a perspective where you're doing it for free. Really, this is a launch pad to just be noticed. So you're still working on your adult career because you still have bills to pay. You have houses to pay. You had cars. You have to feed yourself. You have to feed others because there are a few parents within this group. And then you got to somehow devote time to it because it's just a lot. You work a 9 to 5 and then have to come back and work another 8 hours to get some good content out. So the idea behind Basement Protocol Productions was if you have a group of 10 people or so, I don't know the exact number right now, and you focus on the area you want to do. You want to podcast, you want to talk to a microphone, you want to have a conversation. We have an area for it. Come to us with an idea. We will do what we can to facilitate that idea and push it and market it. Get it on Spotify and push it to the moon. If you want to stream, pick a night. That's your night. We'll push it, market it to the moon. We build each other as a collective because 10 viewers is better than yourself viewing yourself and trying to market yourself by yourself. It's rough. It's hard. We've been doing it for 8 years under the Dace Man Show stuff before we switched over to this. So there was a lot of energy, a lot of motivation. December of 2020, we were rocking and rolling, firing on all cylinders. We had Jersey Bully every Monday. We had Pot of Nerd every Thursday. We had replays of the Dace Man Show going up on podcast form, plus doing the live show. We had streams every night of the week. We had built projects we were going to do as a monthly endeavor. And we rolled into the Game-a-thon, the most successful Game-a-thon we've ever done. We raised over $8,000. We went for 48 hours instead of the typical 24. We had almost an entire month of guest streamers. We ran a March Madness tournament-style bracket. We built a whole new website, basementprotocolproductions.com. We got new merch sales. We, to the T, kicked ass Q1 of 2021. Now, with like most projects, life happens. You can't. The idea of the collective is as one person can't do it, whether it be just time restraints, depression, because that's a hell of a fucking thing, or just, fell out of love with what they were doing. There should be someone within this collective that can pick them up. And that did occur. It occurs all the time. It occurred during the first quarter when we were kicking ass. And it's occurring in the fourth quarter where we're not doing as hot as we are. I think one takeaway we can take from the first year of EPP is our streaming. Our streaming has been top notch. And I say that because we've had a schedule. 4 days a week, at night, during the week, we are live. It is super rare now, and I'm impressed by everyone involved in our stream team, and props off to our stream manager, Jarrett. Props off to Gibby, Aaron, Eric, Frank Ward, who doesn't have his own night, but pops into the streams to help make it lively, Dan Raup, who's kind of pseudo come back into the fold by playing with games with us online and helping make streams more interesting. We have been consistent on that front, and we have been building a fan base. We have streams now that don't dip below 5 viewers, whereas a thing we were doing for 8 years long would be lucky if it got 1, and that 1 was usually the phone of a person filming. So I think there's a lot of kudos to be had there on the stream team side when it comes to streaming on twitch.tv/basement protocol. Areas where we may have slacked a little bit, podcasting. I think everybody just got burnt out. Sports for the Jersey boys really didn't turn back to normal until midsummer. I think it was May or June, where they finally let everybody back into the stadiums. The stories are a little bit slow. It's just tough. So, and they're still trying to find their dynamic. They're trying to figure out if it's a 2-person podcast. Is it a third person to help bounce off? The Dace Man, and to the credit of those guys, the Dace Man Show is 9 years in and still hasn't figured out its footing. We started as a podcast on Block Talk. We moved over to Twitch. We have had several variations of hosting squads, and I still don't think we have the perfect combination. We're tweaking it weekly. We talk about it weekly. We have a chat where we try to better it. And tomorrow night on the show, we're going to try something different to even push it a little bit further. We shall see. But, there's a little fatigue there. Potter Nerd. It started off great. The first episode, where it was about the Joker and it featured myself and Frank Cline, I think is one of our best episodes. There was an outline prepared. We went through every iteration of live-action Joker, and we talked and just had a decent conversation. And I think it's one of the better listens of Potter Nerd. Not to knock the other Potter Nerds, but as you got further and we were trying to push out weekly content, the outline stopped coming. The conversations don't stay on track as much as they used to. It dives into more of a speculation rather than a historical recap and what it means to a person. And we just had to pivot and kind of fix that. We've had conversations within this past couple weeks of how we could retool Potter Nerd. Maybe instead of having 2 passionate people about it, you have a passionate person about it and a person who doesn't know too much about it. I think there's a lot of conversations where, as myself, and this is a reflection on me, as myself being a host of Potter Nerd, being excited about Star Wars, being excited about Marvel, being excited about Scrubs, and talking to somebody else who's just as excited but viewed it just a little bit, the conversation isn't as crisp. Whereas the Harry Potter conversations I've had, I don't know too much about it. I've seen the movies, I've read the books over a decade ago on both of those fronts. And it's more or less, it's a better conversation because it's being explained to me. So I ask questions and kind of get them into a feel where, I need to legitimately know the answers, and the questions don't feel forced. It's not like a loaded question saying, who plays Peter Parker in the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans? And then, they go off on their story and they go, well, actually, and then I list a bunch of reasons why they're wrong. Or like I bring in an alternate, the question was terrible that I used for an example. What I'm trying to say is, as a host, is rather than asking questions, getting answers, which I think is the best formula for that type of podcast, I'm asking questions, getting their answer, and then giving my answer, which can be good, but often I don't think is. So reformatting that is a good idea. Get somebody that when you talk about Marvel and the comics, somebody asks me questions, or somebody asks Jarrett questions, and then they answer, or vice versa, or even with Star Wars. Somebody else sits down with Gibby, somebody else sits down with me, who doesn't dive deep into Star Wars and has a list of questions. Still go with the outline piece of it, but you get better, interesting tidbits when one person's kind of explaining and the other person is learning/listening. Because if information's being said to somebody who knows the information, there's a good chance their response is going to be half-assed because they weren't fully listening. So that's something that needs to be redetermined with Pod or Nerd. Podcasting-wise, it's had peaks and valleys. The only consistent show we've done, and it hasn't been uploaded to Spotify, has been the Dace Man Show. It's not really a podcast anymore. It's live on Twitch. It's a stream. It's a talk show. It's gotten traction. It has people watching. It has people listening. It has people interacting. That show has gotten better in the past year under the Basement Protocol umbrella than it ever did on its own. And we're only bettering it. And I think that's because when we rebranded December 1st, 2020, it brought a sense of community to these projects rather than, hey, I'm Chris Dace and I'm telling you what to do, which I hate outside of... I hate doing on something that's supposed to be for fun. I have said several times, and I think a lot of people use this as a rule of thumb, if it's not fun anymore, you probably need to stop doing it or take a step back from it and then come back at it. And there have been times when I'm doing the Dace Man Show, I have taken a week off, we've done a replay, or somebody else has hosted it to give me a chance to step back. If it's not fun anymore, I got to step back because now it's a job. I don't want it to be a job. I want it to be a job in the sense that it pays me so I can quit the actual job I don't care for, but I want it to be fun. I want it to be me not realizing I'm working, but I'm working. And that's kind of BPP in a nutshell. There's a lot of stuff. We've been making jokes recently on some of our streams that we got a lot in the pipeline, and that's true. We have so many ideas that this collective has come up with. And I can't even say it's been me, because I'm focusing on this podcast, the Dace Man Show, my Wednesday night stream, trying to throw in a monthly 24-hour stream, the Game-a-thon, and then doing the edits in Photoshop and playing on social media and stuff like that other people are coming up with good ideas. And I think would be great. Some that utilize our YouTube platform that we're not really that great with. Some that would utilize more podcasts and get a conversation going there and pairing up different people that may have a better dynamic than the current set of pairing we have. And then there's a lot that just reviving certain things. I have a lot of hope for this group. It's 1 year old, we'll just say. It's 1 year old in probably the hardest time of our adult life, considering the changes we are doing as adults that happen to every adult or most adults, such as marriage, kids, family, all that. And then you have a world that is on the brink of so much disaster and change that influence your life to the core that wasn't there before. A global pandemic, a political system that's clearly not working for anyone. Doesn't matter what side you're on, it's not fucking working. And just like day-to-day problems that didn't exist in our 20s. And for some of these guys a little bit earlier because they're younger. We missed the initial jump on things back when YouTube was first starting, and I have always regretted that. But I firmly believe, and if you've stuck with me through these past half hour, that everyone that's in that chat, everyone we associate with during the Game-a-thon or have associated with, has the potential to be a hell of an entertainer. I don't doubt it. I think the group of people I have done projects with in Basement Protocol Productions this past year, in the things we did under the Dace Man Show banner, with Fanboys Anonymous, Mega Powers Radio, and just dealing with other individuals who have helped us during the Game-a-thon lead up and have come and gone. We're just a group of people that have such potential, and I saw that 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago. We're probably at 9. And I have, actually, it's more than 10 years ago, because Uncensored was the first attempt at this. I have never doubted for a second that the group of people I am currently aligned with and working with and doing things with that are considered hobbies does not have the potential to one day be bringing featured films, TV shows, radio shows, successful podcasts, bringing some kind of form of entertainment to more than just the 100 people we may hit now. I do. I firmly believe that every single person who has ever done anything with myself or the group, I believe that. There's not one that I've looked at and went, they're not entertaining. They're entertaining in their own way. They're creative in their own way. And you just got to find what lights that spark or what sparks that fire and fan the hell out of that flame. And that's what the whole idea and concept of Basement Protocol Productions was supposed to be. And is still supposed to be. And I hope if there are people from BPP listening to this, if there are people who aren't associated with BPP who are listening to this, but have a desire to do something like this, this inspires you to fan that flame. So many creative people I know in my age bracket who have worked with us, I want to see them succeed. There are people who are doing it, and I am so happy for them. I really am. You might think there's a spark of jealousy. The only thing that would be jealousy or just annoyance is, why the fuck can't everybody else do it? Like, you look at the person and go, they're doing great. Yeah, they're great, but so are these people. What sets them apart, and how do we activate it in the people that aren't at that level yet and get them to that level, including myself. I know I've said that some of these projects are suffering from lack of creativity, lack of motivation, whatever the case may be. That happens with me too. Just because I'm recording a podcast today doesn't mean next week, when I'm supposed to bring you another Day's Tackler Mind, I just don't feel like doing it. It is a drive, it is a creativity that once it starts, you gotta find that magic spot that keeps it going. You gotta make sure it's still fun, and you gotta keep pushing, because somebody wants to listen. There's just so many things out there. Somebody will give you a listen. You may hit gold. I may be doing this for 100 episodes, and episode 99 is the one that takes off, and then they go back and listen to the other 98. This one could take off. I doubt it, but it could. And this is what could set the rest of the month of December on fire. It's just, BPP has a group of people right now, and had a group of people who may no longer be working with us on projects. They're the most creative, funny, and at times motivated people I've ever seen. And if you don't believe me, look at the Game-a-thon. We can have the worst year ever pushing out content where we're supposed to be making ourselves bigger, better, famous, getting the rub, shooting to the moon, telling people like PewDiePie to go fuck themselves because they're not funny or they're not entertaining. And we can have that worst year. But come March, February, March, when we're rocking and rolling on that game-a-thon, that's when everybody in this group's at their best. And they're pushing it. They're doing social media things. They're filming things. And then they stay up for 24 to 48 hours to get us to that goal line. And not 1 year have we done worse than the year prior. I say that, and I'm terrified I am terrified. At this time of the year, I am always terrified we are going to be that year. But we always surprise me. And the morning after is the most... I can't even think of it is the most rewarding feeling knowing that 3 months of hard work paid off for that. And knowing what we can do. And knowing that we got there. And knowing that everybody has that capability. And that's why I think BPP will one day be a thing that is globally known. Basement Protocol Productions has potential, always had potential, and can be the future of entertainment. So I hope that's inspirational. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. I'll be back next week to talk to you about the Dace Man Anomaly, or the Dace-tacular Anomaly, I think I called the episode, which is a sequel to the episode I did on children. So I suggest, if you haven't listened to that one and you plan on listening to the next week, listen to that first, because next week's the follow-up, and boy, oh boy, did that change the spectrum and where we're going for myself. So it's huge. Thank you for tuning in to another Dace-tacular Mind. I missed you guys. I hope you enjoyed my little fireside chats I've done with you. I hope you find some of it funny. I hope you find some of it entertaining, and most importantly, I hope something in this ramblings of a 33-year-old madman maybe inspired you, or at least brought you some solace. That's the whole point of this. This is the verbal diarrhea therapy I go through when I need it, and I think this time of the year I definitely need it. So we'll be here every week. Make sure you check out all the other projects going on at basementprotocolproductions.com. The Dace-tacular Gaming for a Cause 9 is coming up in March 25th to the 27th. We're going 48 hours again, and we're themed around Pokemon. So we should have prize announcements soon. The website is up. It has a lot of TBA on it, but we'll have schedules. We'll have another March Madness guest streamer event leading up to it, and we'll also have, hopefully, a bracket. So I hope you enjoyed this week's Dace-tacular Mind, and push yourselves. That's this week's message. Push yourselves. If you have an idea, if you have something that makes you happy, something creative, something that, like, you feel will make you enjoy this shitty thing we call life right now because of all the bullshit that happens out there that can really weigh you down, do it. Fucking do it. Fire up a podcast. Anybody can do a podcast these days. I'm doing one. I'm doing more than one. That's how easy it is. Just get out there. Get out of your head and get into a zone where you feel comfortable. So remember, for the few, for the proud, and for the Dace-tacular, thank you guys for taking a step and a little peek into my mind. And remember, basement dwellers, stick to the protocol. I'll see you next time.
What's up, Basement Dwellers? I hope you enjoyed the latest Basement Protocol Productions creation. I'm Chris the Dace Man Dace.
I'm Frank.
And we want to drop some social media plugs on you. Check us out on Twitter at the BPP Official for all our tweeting needs, or you go over to Instagram at the BPP Official as well for all our picture needs.
Or Facebook/Basement Protocol Productions, or YouTube/Basement Protocol Productions.
And if you're somebody who likes live, non-stop action content, you can go over to twitch.tv/Basement Protocol.
Or if you just like the internet in general, you can go to www.basementprotocolproductions.com. basement-protocol.com. Either way you do it, doesn't matter. We'll see you next time.